Hi, I'm Alex. I'm 16 FTM transgender, so my gender is male, but my sex is female. And if you know me, well, if you've been following my story, then I should be on testosterone or sustanon, I think it's called, next Monday, so I'll be stabbed every month. Exciting times. And this is something that I wrote about a year ago just to sort of explain to myself what I was feeling, sort of thing. And I wrote it based off 6 studies, so I'll quote those. If you find anything better, then please let me know. If anything that I'm saying is rubbish, then let me know. Yeah. So, hi, I'm trans. This means that my biological sex, or the gender that I was wrongly assigned at birth, female, is different to their gender identifier as male. I know this because of because of gender dysphoria, a painful sense of incongruence between my gender and my sex. Maybe identify is the wrong word, because a few studies have started to show that gender exists in the brain, and therefore someone can't just decide to be one gender or another. Granted, you can decide to change your gender expression, the way you act, what clothes you wear, what pronouns you ask for, but you can't change the deeply ingrained identity that children as young as 5 consistently and instinctively exhibit, even when that identity goes against what they have been told about themselves due to their own bodies. My lack of choice in the matter is further evidenced by the research that suggests that my identity is more influenced by, quote, my genetics than by my rearing. Gender is not a flimsy social construct, and my gender cannot be overcome by the denial of some people. I like to use depression to explain this. Yes, being transgender isn't a mental illness, and I'll explain why later, but they are similar in that they are subjective and difficult to diagnose, and what a person says usually pertains to their gender and whether they have depression, and they are both experienced in the brain. Like most reasonable people wouldn't force a depressed person to just get over it or just be happy. It is not reasonable to force a transgender person to live as the gender they were assigned at birth, as it is not only based on false assumptions, it is harmful. If being transgender is not a mental illness, why is the suicide rate so high? This could be due to the serious discrimination that 63% of transgender people studied experienced, which could include people not letting transgender people transition, which could cause worse levels of depression and anxiety since they would have to experience more painful gender dysphoria every day. This difference in the psychological outcomes between those that transition and those that don't suggests that psychopathology is not inevitable within this group. That's a quote. And therefore that being transgender itself isn't a mental illness, but its mitigatable consequence, gender dysphoria, might be. If someone identifies as a dog, does that make them a dog? No. Same as identifying as depressed doesn't mean somebody is depressed. But we can use what a person says they identify as to diagnose them. And children might even say that they identify as one gender and, quote, change their mind. But that just means that they didn't actually identify as the gender they said they did. Maybe they just have a particularly unusual gender expression. So what children say their gender identity is isn't always true, and most of the time it isn't. But researchers that measured the transgender children's identities wrote that, quote, their results support the notion that transgender children are not confused, delayed, showing atypical responding, pretending, or oppositional. They instead show responses entirely typical and expected for children with their gender identity. So that's it. I'll link the studies. Please let me know what you think about any of the points that I've raised. I mean, is depression a good analogy? Yeah. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.